Jetfaker6666 says, I did exactly this. Started from zero, I studied for 3 months before going on my first holiday to Japan. It paid off as I could speak at a level of a very young child and communicate with people who spoke no English for extended periods of time. I didn't use this method though. Just used Anki on the first 1000 words. Read Tai Kim's grammar guide, read Tai Kim's grammar guide, and binged a bunch of beginner podcasts. I mean, it's not the worst approach, but good to explain why learning vocabulary with complete sentences and specifically language islands is much better than learning just words. If you learn the first 1,000 words, you'll know a lot of vocab, a lot of the vocab that you see because of the Pareto principle. You over half of the vocabulary that you hear or you read. Maybe not read if you don't know the characters, right? But you know easily over half of the words in a sentence, probably way more, probably like 80% with the first 1,000 words. And then you learn the grammar. The problem is just looking at reading a grammar guide is going to be reading a grammar guide is basically the same thing as learning grammar with exercises in classrooms, and it's extremely ineffective because you then have to think of how to put all those words in sentences correctly. And okay, those were the rules. This word means this word means that, and you have to on the fly create a sentence. You see the problem with that? Yeah, it's very difficult to do that if you are not very experienced. So instead, if you learn all those, let's say 1,000 sentences, and you learn an example 1,000 most common words, and you learn an example sentence for each one of the words. Um, so you've got each one of those words in a sentence, and you already you start to have an idea. If you've been listening and repeating a lot and listening to those sentences, you have an idea of how grammar works, and you get used to using those words in context, in complete sentences. Sorry, I keep just emphasizing stuff by smashing the table. And it moves the camera. And then if you do language islands, which are the sentences that you think you'll have to say, entire sentences, you'll be able to, instead of having to think, uh, instead of having to remember how grammar works and then remember the vocab and try to form a sentence on the fly, which is extremely difficult, unless you're at an advanced level, you just use the sentences you memorized and you just say it. And you don't have a sentence for everything, but if you had your sentences for all the scenarios you want to, all the situations, conversations you want to have, you have sentences prepared for that. And those words you learned, each one in a sentence as well, you will do pretty well. You do way better. So not the worst thing to learn the most common words and then binging beginner podcast. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. But if instead of just the words you learn those words in context with sentences and language islands, your speaking will get way better than by just doing that.